everything right and show me the way to just be love and show me the way to just be love.
Hello and welcome to Rewire Your Attachment Style. This is Maya Diamond and I'm so excited to be joined here today with Shane and Alia, who are friends, colleagues, amazing people in our community that we share, and I'm really excited to introduce you to them to you today. So first of all, just hi guys.
Hello Maya,
Hi.
Great to be here.
Yay.
Thanks for having us.
So yeah, so excited to chat with you today. So Shane Metcalf is a keynote speaker on building a world-class workplace and one of the world's leading pioneers in the space of cultural engineering and positive psychology. His insights have been featured in Inc., Fast Company, Business Insider, Washington Post, TechCrunch, and Bloomberg. As the co-founder of 15Five, Shane and his team support HR executives with data-driven continuous performance management. 15Five has won numerous awards for their company culture, including the prestigious Inc. Best Workplaces Award, and is ranked number 3 in the US on Glassdoor. Follow Shane on Twitter and LinkedIn and listen to him co-host the Best Self-Management podcast. So he also has an amazing podcast. And Alia is an acclaimed electronic music producer, DJ, coach, author, speaker, and teacher, passionate about awakening the feminine voice through all aspects of creative expression and leadership in order to empower the expansion of feminine intelligence on the planet as a respected aspect of culture, business, media, and society. So excited. As you can tell, everyone, these are major powerhouse people who are doing awesome things in the world, as well as having an awesome relationship. So I would love to just start out with, how did the two of you meet?
Yeah, well, it was
And when was that?
Yeah, 10 years ago. And so we just celebrated being together for the last 10 years. And
Congratulations.
It feels really kind of surreal because simultaneously it feels like a lot of time, and it's also in the scope of a lifelong relationship and partnership, it's a drop in the bucket, even though you only get a couple of decades at best. And so we met, originally we actually met on Halloween, but we hated each other that night. And we triggered each other, and it was definitely the sparks flew, but not in a upward direction. The kind of sparks flew and burned some shit down. And then April of the following year, we were at a coaching retreat with a mutual coaching mentor of ours, and 5 in the morning in the hot tub, and the rest is history.
It sounds more salacious than it actually was.
I know. The hot tub part was actually quite innocent. The whole thing was innocent. It still is.
Okay, I would love to hear the female side of the story, since there's always two sides that are totally different in perspective.
Yeah, well, as Shane referenced, when we first met and we didn't like each other, we were just in very different worlds, and I was still married. In fact, when we came together, I was still married, but moving in the direction of separation. And we found ourselves at a community evening hosted by an organization that focused on communication dynamics between men and women. And we had a really interesting conversation that night where we shared with each other about what we actually thought about each other that first time that we met.
Right. This is the intermediary between Halloween, Fright Night between us, and the magical hot tub.
And experience. The hot tub. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the shifting back to neutral.
Right. Exactly. And then it was like, oh, I'm actually curious about this person instead of having drawn a bunch of judgments about him beforehand.
but never in a million years would I have said, this is going to be my future wife.
Never.
There was
Never would have
zero
Really?
chemistry. There was zero attraction.
Wow.
It was definitely
Really?
like, okay, cool. Like, all right, we're back to neutral at least.
Yeah, and we're in the same community, and
Okay.
cool. He's an interesting person, but never romantically at all. And then even in that moment in the hot tub at 5 a.m, it was still like not romantic. It was or sensual or sexual even. It was just like, oh, I get your heart. I could see his heart in that moment, and that made me, I think, probably more open to him in a way that I had not been before.
Yeah.
And then our coming together was very, it was unexpected, let's say.
And you might hear a little baby in the background. That is our 3-month-old, and it's a very difficult thing to do a coordinated podcast as new parents. And so we might hear some baby in this, but that's the kind of the punchline is 10 years later, we're having a baby, or we had a baby, I guess. And
very recently.
Overall worked. We still have all of the same elements of those initial, not liking each other, communicating, clearing withholds, and then falling in love. And that's kind of the cycle of these last 10 years. We just play that cycle out again and again. And overall, I think it's netted out pretty dang good.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. It's led to a really beautiful life together, and having this child together has been a long time prayer. And now she's 3 months, and now we're here in the time of COVID where we're both home, and she's showing up on our podcast.
It's her first podcast, girl. You're going to be great.
Lots more to come. And so I would love to know, speaking of that withhold practice, this is something that I just love and I think is really fun, and not everyone does, and I know you guys might have different opinions about it, which is like, do you have any relationship practices in place that you practice regularly, or is it more just for the moment, like, or do you have like a weekly thing or anything like that, like check-in?
Well, zooming out a little bit, I think that there's actually, in my other work in the business world, I have this, one of the pillars of our management philosophy, we talk about cultivate relational mastery. And the idea on that is that by the default is that we don't actually learn to be good at relationships. And it was actually so much of my study of personal relationships that I've actually brought into the work that I do as Chief Culture Officer, building healthy business relationships and business cultures. But the truth is that, every relationship has its own microculture, has its own values, has its own levels of relational mastery. And so, I think that one of the benefits of marrying, of both being coaches and both kind of coming from a personal development mindset, is that we've picked up a lot of tools along the way. And there is a variety of things. And it's not that we don't stumble and fumble the ball all the time and not actually use the tool that could actually really help. But it's been about shortening the distance that it takes to go from breakdown to breakthrough, to getting hurt, closing our hearts, and shortening that time it takes to actually get to the root of the issue, speak our truth, listen to each other, forgive ourselves, forgive each other, and then transcend and go to that next level of the relationship.
Connection. And so what do you find works best? Like, how, is there any like moves that you find work best to shorten that distance? Like, do you have to, is there anything, like what would be kind of the key to that for you guys?
Well, admitting that the other person is right is really where it all begins. I'm kidding.
That would help.
It's really,
don't you think?
It's really, ensuring the other person knows that the other one is right is really the key to a successful marriage. Well, is the truth coming out here?
I mean, I like being right. You like being right, but also,
We all like being right.
we like being right, of course.
Actually, one of our friends, Gabby and Raj, she has a great thing, like they have these practices where they kind of celebrate those moments of like when you're feeling so self-righteous and you're like, I know I'm right, and to like actually play that up and like, kind of exaggerate it a little bit. And so like she has this like, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. And so if you can play with
make
it
it a play.
and actually own it instead of denying that actually what I really want right now is to be right, and be like, no, but that's so wrong to want to be right. If you can actually play with that and speak to it and speak to some maybe the insecurity or the fear or the hurt that's underneath that in that moment, that can really actually land in a different way, because it's revealing like, look, I know that I'm just picking a stupid fight with you right now, but that's just because I'm hurting or I'm scared or I'm stressed about all these other things.
Yeah. And just to highlight what Shane just said, it's like he just said, I'm hurting, I'm scared, I'm stressed, right? So those are all vulnerable feeling words. So when we share those vulnerable feeling words, which for men, I've found can be like really challenging because of our cultural conditioning around men and feelings, which is that what I've seen from the past is that men aren't really supposed to have feelings, right? That it's wrong or bad, that they're, little boys if they have feelings. Instead, the new paradigm that I really hope, is going to get stronger and stronger is that, that men having feelings is just perfect and the way it's supposed to be, and that they're really embraced in relationships. So I love that Shane just said, like, I'm hurt, I'm stressed, I'm scared, right? And then that in turn can open your heart, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When he shares those things, it really does open my heart. When we can get past the initial upset enough to really get to what's underneath. And when I can share vulnerably enough from a place of just my truth, with emotion to it, but not necessarily blame or judgment, which I think is where things go awry, right? If I'm lacing it with any kind of blame, pointing fingers, judgment, you're wrong, shame.
I don't know. That generally goes really well with me. I respond super well to your judgment.
I really love yours.
Yeah. Right. So prove you're right and then judge the other person. That's
attack the other person. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So really, no, right. We want to get to the place where we can unpack what's causing us to have those responses to our partner. Maybe it's something going on with us. Maybe it genuinely is something that the other person did that we would like them to take accountability for.
Yeah.
Or, take responsibility for in some way. But then also we always have the opportunity to take responsibility for our own reaction to something and to react in a way that's not going to escalate. And that takes serious practice. That's a real meditation in many ways to get to a place where you can respond to something in a manner that is balanced and, clear, right? Rather than triggered.
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of the really beautiful opportunities of a healing relationship is that we're able to go into our deepest wounds. We're able to, over time, through sustained nurturing, become less hurt people. And it's really beautiful because we have these pockets, we have these waves of harmony that happen in our relating over the last 10 years. And they come with greater frequency and for longer durations where it's just good. Like that there is nothing wrong. We are not actually having to deal with the constant processing or, okay, now let's do the weekly withhold because that's what we should do. And it actually moves into this cocoon of love. And those are, I think, some of the sweetest things. And not that the point is to hang out there all the time, but over the last decade, we have been able to do so much meaningful transformational work together
Mhm.
really creating our relationship. One of the contexts of our relationship is that it's a vehicle for our own transformation and for us to become our best selves. And it's cool to see the fruits of that effort over time, because
Yeah.
not that we're,
That's huge.
I mean, it's an endless mountain to climb, but
Yeah.
for the most part, we get along really well. And the upsets take less time. We have less tolerance for not liking each other,
Right.
because it's just like, look, we're in this. Like we close the back doors. We're not trying to get out of
Yeah.
this. We're not looking for the
Yeah.
excuses why this isn't going to work. And so
Yeah.
it's like, well, why waste time not actually enjoying it?
Yeah. Why hang out in that
Right.
space when we can find a way to meet the other person, or we can find a way to just drop it, let it go, take more responsibility for ourselves. There's a number of things that we could do in order to bring it back to a place of connection and harmony. And so
Yeah.
we're looking for what we could do in order to help facilitate that reconnection.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
really interesting because
Beautiful.
it's not that we don't stumble and fall into those dark pits. And God, those dark pits are so uncomfortable. Like relationship when you are fighting, it sucks. It's one of the more like disgusting kind of, it's insecurity
Painful.
inducing. Yeah, it's just like the gallery
Painful.
trend. And
Yeah.
there is, there's no doubt that is a uncomfortable place, but it's also that's the very indicator, stimulant for growth and for more evolution in the relationship.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
That's how we come to relate to them and treat them, right? And then that's what causes that progress forward. That's what causes that evolution for us, and it's what has made us more skillful at moving through things faster.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We had a breakdown the other night where it was like, I was having a pretty, like things are intense right now, to say the least. And 2 days ago was an intense day, but I was like, oh, I'm holding this. And I didn't collapse during the day, and it was at nighttime, and I take the baby, and the baby's like kind of falling asleep in her arms, and I take her and she wakes up, and which she does, and I bounce her around, and she loves going to sleep to dance music. So I put on some dance music. It's maybe key of like, being gestated by a DJ, part of how she goes to sleep is a good BPM. And then an hour later, I'm like, okay, I think she's ready to nurse because she hadn't fallen asleep. And then I get this like a lashing and like find out that for the last hour, she's been like running a racket on me of like, you put on dance music and you woke her up and she was falling asleep and you suck. And then that just kind of broke me. It was like all the other stress of the day and the week and of the lifetime came flooding in. And it was just like, ugh. And it's just like, oh, I hate you so much. You're like, wow. And I was able to, in a matter of like 2 hours, even go through that cycle of like, I'm going to go to bed and roll over on my side and not, connect. And was able to like, wow. And I made this commitment to tell you that I love you and that you're beautiful every day. And so I'm like going through and I'm like, crap, I didn't do it today. And now I'm like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do this. And then I was like, nope, I'm going to still do this. I'm going to follow my disciplined practice of this. And so I wrote a little love note, and it was like easier to write the note than to say it. But even writing it, it's like, okay. And it starts to let go.
Yep.
Yeah. And then receiving the note, it was the Ho'oponopono poem, right? Not poem, but process. And receiving it, of course, and softened my heart. And then I was able to respond back in kind. And I mean, there are these, little moments of tension that just crop up, and in this particular one, I was not very resourced myself because I had
Right.
had a particularly hard night and long day with the babe, and I have more of those lately than, because I'm handling her all day long and
Yeah.
all night long while Shane's back to work, and
Yeah.
there's just more stress and tension on me in that way, and there's more stress and tension on him being back to work and carrying his company through this time. And we just have to acknowledge that there's just an increase in stressors, and
Right.
when that happens, we have to recognize, oh, I'm not resourced, I'm just not at my best. And then
Yep.
find a way to come back to center.
It's worth noting the Ho'oponopono prayer in process has actually been a real mainstay of our relationship. And we've used it over the last 10 years. And I think really from the beginning, it became one of the pillars of a kind of a life cord that we could grab onto when we were like we wanted to reconnect, but wasn't quite sure how. And it's just like, oh, no, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, I forgive you. And even if it like first you don't totally mean it, it's like it starts to like actually feel, and then it starts kind of like a virus. It gets in and starts actually reconverting your system to love. And it's been a really useful process.
Yeah, well, because it's such a simple way to return to love, and that's one of our values as well.
Yeah,
and one of his family values actually.
And beautiful.
It's something that we aim for. Is just how can we return to love?
Love that. That's so huge to have both of you have that value and be in agreement around that, and to continually to practice that. And so Shane, I would love to go into your family because we work with attachment styles, and family of origin connects with attachment styles. I would love to just hear for both of you. I want to hear about that value in your family, Shane, then also what was modeled to you in terms of romantic relationship, because it's important for the people who are listening who didn't get modeled a healthy, loving relationship in their family growing up to hear just all the different types of relationships you saw growing up and just how you can create something different.
It's a miracle that we're together. It's truly like some act of grace.
We're as healthy as we are.
Yeah, it really is. It's funny. We several years ago, we went to a therapist who focused on attachment style, and because we were having a big breakdown, it was just a difficult time, and we walked out of that meeting and I think we both were like, well, okay, they say that if you're not in a relationship past your like mid-30s or whatever, you probably don't have secure attachment. Right. And so I was like, so cool. We've been together. We're committed, long-term partnership. Obviously, we're secure. And walking out of that first meeting with this brilliant therapist, we were both like, wow, we're both really fucked up. Because it was such a revelation of the ways that lack of secure, loving attachment being modeled for us has shown up in our own kind of default go-to dynamics in relationship. And so, it's so great. I mean, I love when I have a revelation of my own limitation and shadow and my own, dullness and sleeping nature, because it provides an opportunity. It's cool. There's light to be liberated here.
Yeah.
And
totally.
Yeah. Like,
Can you say a summary maybe, of what you were modeled for romantic love?
Yeah, just a deeply dysfunctional family, just a very unhappy marriage of my parents, number of things that were just really quite tumultuous, and, traumatic childhood, and abusive, emotionally abusive siblings, and very deep poverty, and a lot of health challenges, and violence in the community, and amidst
So a
all
lot of
of
different
that,
trauma in different ways. Yeah.
amidst all of
Trauma.
that, there was a really remarkable aspect to my family.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful watching that the good of my family over time has grown and become better. And we've collectively, I think, moved towards more secure, loving attachment as a family. And in many ways, I had to do so much of my own work. I had to grow myself up. I had to go and find my own resources, my own mentors, the people that I respected, that I could look up to, and study relationship and really make a study out of how do I actually get what I want out of life. Alia, however, luckily had very secure, loving attachment styles in her parents.
Haha, we laugh.
Yeah.
Well, no, my parents were definitely modeling a very traditional patriarchal form of marriage and partnership, in which my father was definitely the dominant voice, and he was a narcissist, textbook, and also very angry, prone to outbursts. Just definitely very emotionally violent. And we often felt very scared, and I developed a pattern of adjusting my behavior by calibrating to what mood he was in that day. And then that became something that I then did later in life, of course, in other partnerships. And I really had to unpack what healthy male relating really looks like. And I've had
the healthy masculine.
The healthy masculine, And I've had the good fortune, actually, really, of finding myself in long-term partnerships with Shane and then my former husband, both of whom are really wonderful, conscious men in general. They've been seeking, they've been growing themselves, and they've been studying healthy masculinity for a long time, and that what's been helpful in order to help me progress out of my old patterns. But I definitely had a bunch of them that I had to unwind.
Well, in relationship, it's such a hall of mirrors as well, because there's ways that my own still, patriarchal dominating tendencies and kind of maybe more of a homeopathic dose of that than a full-blown entree. But then that feeds into that same wound. And all of a sudden she's projecting all of her daddy issues on me. And then I'm becoming that projection as well and feeding into it. And so it's this really wild ride. Relationship is such a trip because it's such perfect reflection of our own internal makeup, our own holographic nature.
Right. Our inner anima, inner animus. Yeah. And so, and I'm curious, Alia, if before those relationships, have you had the pattern of being with like narcissists or abusive men or anything like that?
That didn't show up for me. I gravitated, luckily, towards men that were generally not showing those kinds of behaviors. So that's, I think, kind of remarkable, because I know that can happen. It's a blow
against the theory that we only repeat the behaviors modeled to us.
Yeah, I never wound up in a relationship with a man who resembled my father.
Although you've accused me.
I mean,
right. There might be some traits.
Shane has some traits. But, he's very strong-willed, very dominant in the way that he expresses in the world. But luckily, he has a well-developed feminine part of him that is also willing to listen and feel me
and see you, hear you, feel you, see you, empathize with you. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is an interesting idea that there is a nature versus nurture aspect to relationship that just because our ecology of the familial imprinting is what it was, doesn't actually mean that's actually going to be our path. And I think that it definitely influences a lot of the aesthetics of it and the flavors of it. But thank goodness, because otherwise, we'd all be screwed. Unless we were raised in one of the lucky families that actually had secure attachment styles modeled.
Exactly.
It's always like, sometimes I meet those people and I'm like, what an asshole, like, geez, just so good, It's actually more like, wow, it's amazing that exists.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I always tell my securely attached clients, I'm like, you've struck gold. Like,
Really?
you're so lucky. You should tell everyone that you date that you're securely attached, by the way.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, going back to attachment. So just for the listeners and for you guys, just to give the overview one more time, on the 4 styles, there's anxious, secure, avoidant, and disorganized. I'm curious, when you guys came into the relationship, usually we're a combination of 2. Like, can you feel into the 2 that you would identify with the most of the 4 when you came into the relationship?
Sorry, what were the names? Anxious, avoidant, and then what were the other 2?
Disorganized, secure.
And secure.
Yeah, I would say probably anxious and disorganized.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah.
Potentially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that.
And so, Shane, for you, which 2 were the ones?
Yeah, I think that I was a more anxious avoidant combo. And, I haven't gone deep enough into it to really know if that's really what it is, but that is, I think, probably more accurate of where I was coming in the relationship.
And and I'll just say to the listeners, so what's really cool about their coming together is they've become more and more secure, as you can tell from what they're saying, through the relationship. So by being there for each other and having the consistent, reliable love, they've grown more and more secure in themselves and in their relationship. And that's taken a level of commitment and showing up and presence and attunement and all of these things, that are secure traits. So I think they had a lot of those secure traits as well as these more insecure ones coming in.
Yeah. I'd like to just add too, I feel that one of the biggest things that has created that secure attachment is, as Shane said earlier, we closed the back door. It's about commitment. It really is about commitment and devotion and also granting each other space and freedom to be ourselves at the same time, right? And and having a commitment to our personal evolution while staying thoroughly committed. And I know commitment is something that a lot of people have a really hard time with. And when there's uncertainty and you don't know how it's going to work out, and
we had some bad sex, or we haven't had sex in a while, and oh my God, is this how it's all going to go? And now I'm future pacing the slow decline in my life and making the wrong choice, and I could get out right now. Oh shit, I should just get out right now. And
all those
a real thing,
right? All those
experienced. Yeah,
right. All those doubt thoughts, right? There's the doubt thoughts, and then like, how do you act upon those? Yeah.
Right. And it's really just, well, what are you actually committed to? And I think that it's, there's a phrase, I think that it's one of Shane's shadows in the Gene Keys, if anyone follows Gene Keys, right? It's half-hearted.
No, I don't have that. No.
Oh, I thought you did.
No way, man. That's me, half-hearted? No. No, but it's
so
not.
what number is that? So we can all learn.
It's 29. It's a beautiful one of the hexagrams. And so it moves from the shadow of half-hearted into the gift of commitment, and the highest expression is devotion. And it's such an amazing one to contemplate for a relationship, because it's like, 99% is still half-hearted.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Yeah,
so
and I think so many relationship troubles happen when the participants
There's
are
not a full.
half-hearted. And even if
It's
they
so
don't
true.
think they're half-hearted, but there's some part of them that is
Yeah.
somewhere deep down, right? Because we become afraid of truly giving ourselves over. Because what if it's the wrong person, or what if they hurt me, or what if it just doesn't work out, and then I'm I'm going to have to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
What if
And
there's someone
commitment is
better?
a form of surrender. Sorry, go ahead. What?
Oh, I was just gonna say, well, what if there's someone better for me?
wait, you think there might be someone better for me? Shit.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm questioning everything. Maybe we need to get that back door, and here, I'll just here, you take the baby, and I'm out of here.
As we can see, humor is a big part of this marriage.
Well,
So,
and I think, like, just to like say on that is that, like, we love the role models of people that take relationship really seriously, and are like really developed and have relationship as kind of part of their personal brand. And we've learned a ton from those people. And I also love just being a normal goofball couple that of not trying to be on the cutting edge of relationship, and not trying to be like the sexiest, coolest, hottest, most evolutionary relationship on the planet.
Conscious.
Yeah, we're the conscious evolutionary relationship, and look at us, we're so cool. Because I don't know, it's like, it gets old, and it becomes more about the marketing of that than about the joy of family, and the joy and the silliness of finding somebody that you can be, that you can let all of the parts of yourself actually come out and play with.
Yeah.
And that's fundamentally, I think, also one of the things that from the beginning has been just remarkable about this woman, is that she, and I wrote this in a Facebook post, actually, what you prompted, that my little boy is totally safe to come play with Alia. And then I wrote, like, it was like my little boy, like a sanctuary for my little boy, and a wild ocean for my capable man. And
beautiful.
And that really, I think, is a really cool expression, because I get to be the biggest dork. I get to sing off key in front of you anytime I want, and never feel self-conscious. I get to do all the things, and it really allows for so much joy and play and creativity and magic. And those are the hallmarks of this last decade. And it's a real,
so beautiful.
It's a real treasure to have that kind of psychological safety in a relationship, because it can really grow over time.
Absolutely.
That's so beautiful.
Shane's really provided that for me too, and on so many levels. And I think that when you have that psychological safety, then you can get down to the business of just enjoying your life and enjoying your time together. and enjoy those simple pleasures, and be playful, and being able to just poke a little bit at the places where we can take things ultra seriously, too seriously, to the point of maybe to our detriment, right? And being able to just laugh, being able to laugh at the places where sometimes we're so silly, we're such silly humans, and it's not our fault. There's so many reasons why we developed those tendencies, and yet we have a choice in every moment to just decide to have fun with it, instead of making it really painful.
Exactly. Beautiful. I want to highlight a couple of things, and then I want to move on to the next question, which is, like, one, the point that Alia made around the commitment. And so that's so true. Even just if you're thinking about, doing, for the people who are listening, if you're in a couple and you're thinking about doing couples work, if both people aren't fully committed, it's going to be so much harder for the work to actually work. So, there's so many, negative consequences to the lack of being fully in and fully devoted. And so it's almost like it's like leaks in a pot, right? The other
Yeah,
thing I
there's
wanted
never
to,
been a place that one of us wanted to go that the other wasn't willing to follow.
yeah, that's huge, huge. And then the other point I wanted to make around commitment is I think commitment is a form of surrender. So it's like there's a way that by fully committing, you've surrendered, which surrender actually means fall into grace. So there's a way that you've allowed yourself to open to this love, which allows it to blossom in the way that it has, in such a beautiful way. And something I wanted to highlight through watching you, because I've known you both. I knew Shane before, I think I knew you both before you guys got together, but definitely Shane, but that the way that I've seen you guys just grow so much as humans, right, in your individual lives and together. So it's like that to me is one of the signposts that I've seen of really healthy, loving relationships, is that your life blossom as a result, like your careers, your community, your, you know, all the amazing festivals that you've played at. Like there's just so much that has happened in this space context, right? And so it's, to me, it's partly because of the bond that you have that's created that secure base for you to fly and grow. And I loved what you said around the freedom. It's like you have freedom to be yourselves and you have the commitment. So those two things together, I think, is what everyone wants. And so it's really powerful that you're able to allow each other to be your full selves and have that devotion and commitment. And then one other piece around the accept, that I think love and acceptance are actually like a little bit different energies. And that what you said about how much she really provides this safe sanctuary is like this acceptance of your little boy and your wild self and all these things. And so that just like allows you to feel so safe. And so for all the women listening, I think that's huge, which is like acceptance. I believe the more we accept ourselves, the more we can accept someone else, but also our relationship with the masculine, the more we have that healed, the more we can, you know, be loving towards all the different sides of the masculine. So yeah, it's just a beautiful element that you shared around that, Shane.
Yeah. Thanks for that reflection, Maya. And indeed, that's been I think a hallmark that we look to in terms of judging the success of our relationship is how much we both have individually grown. And that we often say that the relationship feels like it's what is responsible, or, you know, mostly responsible, partly responsible even for that growth, that we have become those people through the transformational aspect of this relationship. And that's what supported us and served us to become our best selves.
Yeah.
And it makes all those other things, it makes all the other expansion so much more enjoyable, because, you know, like we have a nice house up in the hills, and like the times that we are fighting and my heart's closed, I'm looking around at our beautiful house and it's like, oh, this is so meaningless. And yet the times when we're happy, then other things actually make me happy too, which is part of kind of what I believe, that like things can actually make us happy if we're already happy. And not that like we want to be in a codependent dynamic where I rely on Alia for my happiness. But man, life can be so incredibly good when we're in that harmonious flow. And I think that it's one of the beliefs we hold about relationship, is that harmonious relationship and harmonious marriage is one of the greatest joys on the planet. And it's great because we don't even have to believe it. It's just the truth. And I love hanging out with my wife. It's so much fun. It just hasn't gotten old. It's just like, wow, I can't believe that like we're not bored of each other yet, and that we still laugh at each other's horrible jokes. And now we've got a third person to hopefully laugh at our bad jokes. And that we get to just keep having fun. We get to keep doing this silly thing called life. And, you know, until one of us kicks the bucket, we get to do it together. And it's a lot of fun.
It's so beautiful. And so I'm curious for each of you, what would you say for the single women who are listening, what's the number one trait you would recommend to look for in their next partner?
I would recommend they look for a man who's unafraid to go to the depths with her, who's really willing to take a look at his own shadows and take a look at his own attachment style and all of the things that have contributed to who he's become in relationship, who's willing to do the work, and who's also willing to reflect the places in her that that could use more light, or that that could use more unearthing, right? And who's willing to do that with love and compassion rather than judgment. And then, but who's also willing to reflect to her best, reflect to her how beautiful of a being she is, right? And who's willing who really genuinely sees her that way, who it's not just something that he says to get in her pants, right? It's more like it's like really genuinely from the heart, like, I see you, I love you, right?
I love that. Everything you just said is so powerful. Beautiful.
Same question for me.
Yeah.
So of what a woman should look for, like one trait, and
the number one trait, that you would recommend. Yeah.
Well, I think that there needs to be a growth mindset. If you're familiar with Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset versus growth mindset.
Oh, no.
A phenomenal book called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. And why I say that, it's usually applied in more of the academic and the business parenting worlds, but having, and essentially what a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset is a fixed mindset thinks that, like, whatever my level of development, whatever my IQ or EQ is where it's at. It's fixed. Like, I can't learn to play guitar, so why would I even bother to go and take a lesson? And a growth mindset is just a different belief that my skills, abilities, and intelligence are variable traits that are influenced by the effort put into the process. And it doesn't necessarily mean that all people can be as good at anything that they want to be. Like, I'm never going to be an opera singer or a basketball NBA star. But what it allows, and why I think it's so vital, is that it orients you towards growth. It orients you in a relationship to understanding, okay, I might have an emotional intelligence of a troglodyte, but I can grow. I can actually engage in these practices. I can look at having the revelation that I have an anxious and avoidant attachment style, and that it was never safe for me to go seek sanctuary with my parents. And so that's why I'm not revealing my feelings to you. Oh, wow. And then I get modeled. The relationship can be a sanctuary for my most wounded parts. And you can start to orient towards, how do I get there? And you orient towards growth. Because inside of that, I think everything is possible. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the key to the long-term survival of the relationship, thriving of the relationship. But what I do think it can mean is that you don't pull the parachute cord prematurely. You don't eject out of a relationship before the karma of the relationship has played itself fully out. Because I don't think that all relationships are destined to be the lifelong relationship, nor that that's the only purpose of relationship. Is like, if it's not a lifelong relationship, then it's not worthwhile. Right. I look at every relationship that I had prior to Alia as incredibly precious gifts that helped me to become the person that I am, that unbeknownst to me had me be ready for this kind of a commitment.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, that's huge. The growth mindset in that book sounds really, really great. Yeah, it takes a level of humility and courage to look at yourself and to look at your shadow and to feel the pain of your childhood and grieve it and heal. So I love that.
Yeah.
It's a really,
and I think that there is
important
something to be said around shared value systems. Not that you want just completely the same values, because that can get boring and,
yeah.
diversity there. But one of the things that has been enormously useful for us is shared ambition. Part of the context of our relationship has always been the realization of our dreams, that we want
Yep.
to support each other in the pursuit of our highest visions around our careers and finance and contribution to the world. And then the shared value around growth, the shared values around spiritual practice, around around dance and music. And those things have been incredible pillars that allow for us to feel like we are on a team that is doing something and moving in a similar direction.
Totally. And that I wanted to ask you, I know there's some shared values that you have a conscious kind of grasp on. I'm wondering, did you guys have like a sit down at one point in the relationship and have a talk about that and like a structure that clarified those? Or did those naturally evolve? Or did that happen before the wedding? I'm curious.
Yeah, we do this shit all the time. It's like we're, being kind of like transformational junkies.
Geek.
We're constantly,
Nerd.
And we go in waves with it, but we've done a lot of writing exercises. We've done a lot of relationship exercises. We've done a lot of kind of coaching programs together where we're going through things. We're going through a program right now that we love that's really identifying different parts of our life and what we want of those, and then comparing notes. And we go for desire walks where we talk about the things we want. There's a lot of different.
It's a conversation. Yeah, it's definitely consciously created. Yeah,
definitely consciously created.
Yeah, well, and that's it. And that is it. I mean, I know that there's some people who maybe who have great relationships that aren't consciously created, but for us, it wouldn't have happened without deliberate determination, consciously praying and intending our lives into the way that they are. And it's an ongoing process, because just because we did it yesterday doesn't mean we get to coast for the next month.
Right. Exactly. And I'm curious if you guys have any, in terms of physical intimacy. I think physical intimacy is something that, can go up and down in our relationship and is so important for long-term relationship and happiness. And so I'm curious if there's anything practice-wise that you guys have in place, like certain date nights or, again, certain conversational practices that have really helped keep the passion alive, or if it's just a natural occurrence from all the other pillars that we've talked about.
Well, I'll chime in here. I came to this relationship with some still unresolved sexual trauma, and that has definitely been a challenge in our relationship. I would say our sex life has been the hardest aspect of this relationship, because Shane has a really not very traumatized sexual nature and has just a very different relationship to it than I have, and different needs and different ways that he likes to express himself in that realm, and we've had to really navigate that over time, and it's there's the babe.
Here's our daughter Ava. We obviously had enough sex to make a baby.
So through the years we've tried different practices. There was you know, from different organizations, and we won't go into those necessarily, but that we've, you know, read books and together, or, you know, looked at different things from different thought leaders in this realm. And then also, though, I think very simplistically for me, it's also taken for me to be able to let go and cause some healing in this area for myself, and to be able to surrender more to him in this way. It really did require a sense of trust, and what he showed over time was a consistent willingness to keep showing up, even when he would get frustrated, even when it was hard, and keep his curiosity about, you know, how to help me open, you know, was huge. And then, you know, when I was pregnant, you know, it's like things shifted, you know, we've gone through different phases, right?
Hormonally. Exactly.
Right. Hormonally. There are definitely been times when I'm more available and open to it and not. And we actually had a fun time at the end of my pregnancy where I was like really open to it. And that was cool. Right before I gave birth.
You're telling me.
I know.
I'm sure helped the birth happen. Yeah.
Right. And then I've been healing since giving birth, and only kind of just coming around to the idea of re-engaging again. Right. So I think through long-term relationship, we're just going to have to understand that we're going to go through these phases, and you know, that's been a big one for Shane to come to terms with, because certainly, as he said a little earlier, he would go through phases of freaking out a little, like, oh God, you know, am I just going to have a sexless marriage forever? And
I never freaked out about that. Yeah, I mean, it is. And I do believe that so many relationships fall and fail because of sex, because you don't
sex and money are the two biggest.
Figure out, you don't figure out how can we actually make this work. And me coming in a more, kind of classically higher libido, lower libido dynamic. And then how do we actually navigate this? And, I think that every couple, oh yes, Ava, says, well, I want mom and dad to have a very sexy, healthy sex life.
We want you to have a healthy sex life too, babe.
And so, when there's been periods where it did get scary, and it was that kind of that pessimism and, oh shit, can this actually happen? Can we get through these barriers? And it really does require that surrender and that trust and patience. But also, I think one of the things that really worked was me drawing a line in the sand and saying, I will not tolerate us just going into perpetual decline. Like, I refuse. That is not the marriage that I want. That is not the relationship that is my heart's prayer. And at times that was more confrontational than others, because then for Ollie, it's kind of looking at the gap of, oh no, I don't know if I can be that. And so I'm terrified you're going to leave me because I'm not able to give you what you want. And so talking about these things and ripping the cover off is terrifying, because it's like, shit, what if this reveals that we are not actually compatible? And yet it's that very communication that is the healing balm that can create new possibilities. And and it's interesting. It's like, I mean, I think that maybe this is also just getting older too, but when we go through a valley, I don't have quite the existential crisis that I used to. That there's some level of transcending my own sexual compulsion, my own kind of insistence on sexual fulfillment. Not that I'm not completely insistent on sexual fulfillment, but it's easier to accept some of the breaks, you know, being new parents and like,
Right.
you're like, okay, look, like being like, it's okay right now for a moment, but I remain I remain optimistic, and that's every day, right? Because it's the moving from optimism to pessimism about our future sexual prospects that I think really fucks people up.
Right. Totally.
Mhm.
It's huge.
And so,
and that's also secure. It's also, I believe, it's part of the trusting piece, like trusting that, like, this is a wave, and that's actually really secure to trust that up and down wave. And so, and it sounds like, through being together, it's like, you know, it's going to come back, and then there will be different arcs and valleys. And
it helps to have, you know, I mean, it's really nice to have some of the peaks in addition to the valleys, right? You know, because if it's only valleys and no peaks, it's like, all right, like, what the fuck?
But we've had a lot of peaks, right? So we've had a lot of really beautiful sexual connections, and that's how we knew, like, okay, this is possible. Like we've got this, and like we had something to really demonstrate and reach for.
And keep coming back to it and keep growing and expanding in. Exactly.
Yeah. But it takes, you know, each person needs to be willing to ride those waves and be willing to look deeper, to do the work, to continue to grow.
Right. Like if you hadn't been willing to do your own work, to show up for yourself, to take care of your body, to engage in your practices, it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, it's so huge. So huge. That piece of, owning the places where we can grow, owning, you know, where we have room to stretch. And I think, in sexuality, it can be really uncomfortable to grow and stretch because we have these default ways of moving in our bodies. And so to actually grow in different ways in sexuality, it's an uncomfortable, it can bring up shame, it can bring up fear, all that stuff. And so just, like learning each other's, it's really, there's a whole, language to our arousal, our bodies. And so, there's so much to learn from each other.
Yeah, and you know, because the prayer is to have the best sex of our lives for the rest of our lives with each other. And we've had periods of being open and having other lovers, and you know, and like ultimately we've chosen of more of a monogamous path because that's actually where we found the most juice. Like it's really easy to go have another lover and have all that juice and be like, oh my God, like this is so hot. And yet the greater challenge is, can you really actually keep discovering new experiences and novelty and the love,
spiritual, transcendent.
The true like depth of lovemaking that can open up in year 10. And that's really exciting. Not easy. I don't think it's not an easy path. It requires consistent input of energy into the system to avoid that entropic decline of our libidos.
That falling asleep, right? That falling asleep that happens in relationship. It's like, oh, you're just this person that is always here, and I'm just going to take you for granted, or take these qualities that you have for granted, or take our connection for granted. So,
the quality of attention, like, you know, I know that like why affairs are so intoxicating is because somebody's suddenly paying attention to us in an incredibly better way than our partner is, who just thinks that we're a pain in their ass and always yells at us. And you know, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, you do that? Oh, that's so cool. And tell me more. And what do you want out of life? And who are you? And there's this suddenly like, wow,
shiny.
I feel so lit up by that. And so, you know, creating creating those opportunities for those types of communication is, I think, part of how you keep producing like high dopamine producing activities so that it is interesting. Because since long-term relationship moved from dopamine to, I think, serotonin or is it oxytocin?
Oxytocin, probably both of those. I think.
And so like,
but
you know,
the dopamine
Alia's
is
career as a DJ has been amazing because it's like kept us dancing and going out and like, or before back in the day when humans could go dance together.
Exactly. Back in the good old days.
Good old days.
But, you know, we still like have crazy dance parties in our kitchen and in the bathroom.
That's so awesome.
And it's so great. It's just like, there's nothing better than like getting down on the kitchen floor with my wife.
Totally. So great. It's huge. Those things are huge. Like those little moments to break up the day and bring that connection and love and physical touch. Yeah, it's huge. Love it. Love the dancing in the kitchen. Oh my gosh, your baby's so cute. Okay, well, you both are, it's just been such an honor and joy and so fun to get to deepen with the two of you today and learn more about this beautiful relationship, because so much of relationship happens behind closed doors. And so that's part of why I'm so passionate about this podcast, is because I love getting to hear these moments that we might not hear otherwise. So I would love to, just because people might be excited about the two of you and your work in the world, if there's anything you want to share about your work for the listeners, again, would love to hear anything.
Sure. Thanks for the invitation to do that. Well, thank you, Maya, first of all. It's been so fun to do this with you. And for those of you who'd like to know more about me, my website is aliafrequency.com, so ALIA frequency.com. And I have been, as my bio said, an electronic music producer and DJ for the last 10 plus years. And then also for the last 18 years or so, I've been a coach, and I've been working with high performing women for many, many years. And they're my two passions, I should say. And what brings them together is my empowerment of the feminine. And that's what I'm interested in serving. And so, if you'd like to go hear my music, you can find it on Spotify. Feminine Medicine is the name of the albums. And thanks again.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Great. So
thank you.
Most of my work is really in the business world. And what I do love is taking all of these principles from the kind of conscious relating and relationship focus world and bringing those principles into the business world. And I really think it's part of how we've been able to design an award-winning culture is by saying, look, you don't leave your attachment style at the door when you walk into the office and you put on your manager hat. All of that shit flows through every style of leadership and management that you have as an entrepreneur, as a leader. And so I talk a lot about that. You can check out my podcast. It's the Best Self Management podcast. So best self podcast, or Best Self Management. You can go to my company's website is 155, that's 15five.com, where we're really talking about how do you create cultural transformation? How do you create feedback loops inside of companies so that you can create alignment and cohesion, clarity, and communication.
Beautiful. Wonderful. So thank you both so much. Such a joy. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to Rewire Your Attachment Style. This is Maya Diamond. To receive your 2 free gifts to help you on your journey to lasting love and to start rewiring your attachment style today, go to empowerlove.us/love.